What's up, ladies? Today we're going to be talking about exactly why we shouldn't be dating that broke guy with all the sweet words. I'm breaking it down. Let's get into it. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Make Life Beautiful podcast, where we break down things about life so we can improve, we can learn, we can make our lives beautiful. Now, today we're talking all about dating the broke guy. And when you're young, it's super cute, but there comes a point when you shouldn't be doing this. And there's more reasons than just because you deserve more. I'm really going to break it down granularly for you guys. I'm going to show you how it will affect your life and how it would play out and exactly why you shouldn't be doing this. And before I get into it, I want to tell you about my membership program. So on YouTube, there's a new communities and memberships program, which is super cool because it allows us to have this super tight-knit community that isn't public, it's private. We can discuss more of these issues. There's a join button. If you're listening to this podcast on another platform, go to my YouTube channel and click the join button. This is what you're going to get for the membership. So this week in my community, we're going to be doing a more in-depth Q&A. So after you listen to this podcast or watch this video, you might have some extra questions. I'm going to be personally answering these questions. I'm also going to give you guys a checklist of questions you guys can ask on dates to kind of draw out the information that you need to make sure you don't get into the situation in the first place. I'm going to be putting together a red flag list. And also I'm going to give you guys a guide to hang up on your wall to remind yourself why this is a bad idea. And if all this sounds interesting to you, I encourage you guys to click join now. All right, guys, let's jump into this whole thing. But before I really get into the details and weeds of this topic, I want to define what broke is. Okay, so there's many definitions of broke. One is he may be living paycheck to paycheck. That means no savings, no kind of rainy day fund, nothing for emergencies. He's literally living life like literally by the wire. Even worse option to living paycheck to paycheck is that he is in debt. Not only, can he barely pay his monthly expenses, he owes a ton of money. And I think what's really important about being in debt is why he's in debt. I don't think we could automatically judge people for debt because things happen. But if he's in debt because he wants the latest tech or like a really nice car that he literally can't afford, that's a red flag. But if he's in debt because a family member had a really bad medical condition and he needed to cover it and he's now paying it back, that is not an automatically red flag. So I think it's really important to really see like why he's in the situation in the first place. The other thing that, I define as broke is a broke mentality. So this is like spending habits, how you manage your money, how financially literate you are. I got taught growing up to be really, really careful and practical with my money because my parents were first generation immigrants and they didn't have a lot. So they needed to kind of make ends meet as best as they can and give me the best life that they could. And so they taught me inherently lots of ways to save money, what things you shouldn't be spending money on that is considered frivolous. So it's really important in terms of broke. It could be a broke mindset as well. Like, he's spending more than he earns. He's spending above his means. He's spending money on items that just aren't like investments. They're more like just wastes of money. And it's more than just like analyzing that from a logical level. It's like, are you guys compatible in terms of spending habits? Because someone broke to me may not be broke to someone else. So this is kind of very subjective. Like some people like to splurge on some things and others. I think compatibility is more important than like an actual like this is good, this is bad. Again, this is someone you're going to be dating and could potentially be your life partner. So they should be suiting you, not a list of rules that I'm making up or someone else is making up. So again, before like I go into the details, keep in mind everything I'm saying to you is my opinion, my point of view through my experiences. And I encourage you guys to apply critical thinking and use what I say and apply it to your own context and your own point of view. That is so important. All right, ladies, now that we've defined what broke is, let's get into exactly why being broke is a red flag. And it goes beyond just the number in his bank account. Let me explain. So, I am referring to this personality test. It's called the Big Five personality traits. This is a kind of like personality quiz a lot of companies use to kind of bucket their employees so you can see what the strengths and weaknesses of someone is. And the reason why I use this is because it is actually said that a lot of indicators of someone's success is also related to the kind of combination of their big five personality traits. And I'm going to be relating why broke is a red flag with these kind of personality traits. Okay, so the five different personality traits that this test kind of goes through are openness, conscientiousness, agreeableness, extroversion, and neuroticism. And I'm going to go through each of them and let you know what being broke kind of indicates and how it will affect your relationship. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is openness. So, openness is a trait about being flexible, about being open minded, about being able to receive new information and then act on it. You know, there are some people that are really like stuck in their ways. Those people are low on openness. And people that are like always doing new things all the time, they're high on openness. But what being broke could actually mean is they might be a very low in openness person. And how could this affect your relationship? Because success in sort of financial, career, and money kind of involves a certain level of openness. Being open means that you can learn new information, you can change up your life to suit the career or potential of a particular situation. You'll find a lot of people that are not successful, that are broke. They're usually very close-minded. They kind of start thinking something negative and they won't change and they can't change and they refuse to learn. That is a big red flag for having a healthy relationship because it's so important that when you're in a relationship that they are willing to accept a new point of view, which is not theirs, because you might be a very different person to them. Again, if you want something changed or a compromise, that they can learn and be willing and flexible to change. Having low openness means they're not flexible and they can't change. And there are certain things that people just can't simply change and you need to tolerate in a relationship. But, you know, having a low openness score to begin with can be difficult to be in a relationship with someone like that. So that is kind of an indicator that I would kind of look at in terms of if someone's broke. Is it because they're not open and they refuse to learn new things and they refuse to be flexible? So now they're stuck in this situation and that's why they're not making any money. That is something to look out for. The next personality trait is conscientiousness, and what this refers to is the ability of someone to stick to something. Like a conscientious person, when you give them a task, they will finish it on time, they will look through the details, they'll make sure everything is correct, and they're not reckless. You know, they're the person that shows up on time. When you tell them it's 5 p.m., they'll show up on 5 p.m. And being broke could indicate that they have low conscientiousness because usually to be successful in a career or a job, you need to turn up on time, you need to listen to instructions, you need to be able to execute and do those instructions. That is literally the personality trait that creates a successful person or someone that has more capability of earning more income. Right? So if someone is broke, you need to be like, is it because they're low on conscientiousness? And if they're low on conscientiousness, what does this mean for your relationship? Well, basically, it means that if you tell them to do something, like take the trash out, they're going to forget and they're not going to do it. And you constantly have to start nagging them and reminding them, and they're going to get frustrated. And being in a relationship with someone like that is very, very hard because once you are in a long-term relationship and you start to live with someone, like those things, even though they sound really trivial at first, are so important. Because if on a daily basis, like you tell someone to do something and they constantly forget, it is so hard to live with that person, and you're gonna be like resentful, and that's just gonna make everything go downhill so quick. The other factor for conscientiousness is that people low in conscientiousness usually can't stick to something for very long. So they find it very hard to like just go do something for a long time, even though it's the right thing to do. They also give up super easily because it just seems so hard. These, again, are all traits that you don't want in a long term partner because you're gonna have to pick up all the slack. Imagine someone has a kid with you and then just decides like it's all too hard. Like, I'm not gonna help you raise this kid anymore, or like leaves because it becomes too hard. Like, these are the people you want to avoid. And sucks being broke, but that they might be broke because that's their attitude. The other thing that low conscientiousness people have is they're totally disorganized. Now, that may not super affect you in your daily relationship, but it also means their environment's more messy. They're more messy in general. When you ask them questions, they get confused. This is not as big a red flag as the other things, but can be kind of annoying. And I'm still talking about conscientiousness right now because this is actually a very important trait. So, one thing that's super interesting about conscientious people is they are able to get over negative emotions much easier. It also means they seem more emotionally mature. So people that are low in conscientiousness also react emotionally quickly, and they can like just be like super angry really, really quickly and don't really know how to handle their emotions because they let their emotions take them for a ride. Now, in a man, that is going to be very difficult to deal with and can lead to very, very negative circumstances such as physical abuse or even emotional abuse. Their inability to handle their own emotions may lead to this need to control you and their environment instead of themselves. So again, this conscientiousness aspect is so important. Are they broke because they're flying off the wall and they can't handle feedback from their boss and they just get really mad, so they keep changing jobs? Why is it that they're broke? You need to look into this. This may also mean that it's hard for them to build a professional network, even like a social network personally, because of this kind of behavior, the inability to stick to things, they give up easily, they don't turn up to things on time. They might have trouble keeping friends. They may have trouble also expanding their professional network, and this is what keeps them broke. The next aspect I want to talk about is agreeableness. With a man, agreeableness is not that important, I think, because there's a lot of men that are very disagreeable, but it's something to kind of look at to see that is being super disagreeable a reason why they're broke? Is this a totally bad thing? Because with men, it's sometimes really important to stand your ground. You do want someone in the relationship to lead you that isn't afraid to say no. Now, being too high on the agreeableness scale is great for women because we're there to accommodate, to nurture, to keep the peace. But with masculine energy, it tends to be disagreeable. So maybe they're broke because they're too agreeable. They're saying yes to too many things that they can't handle, and they're not kind of reflecting on what they can do and what they can't do, and therefore let a lot of people down and create a bad reputation. Is that why they're broke? So you need to look at their agreeableness too and be like, okay, why? If they're being disagreeable and the reason why they're broke is because they stuck to their guns, but they have a very strong vision and all the other personality traits are really great, this might be, someone with a lot of potential. Now, dating for potential is like a whole nother topic, but there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are very disagreeable because you kind of have to be. You can't listen and try and keep peace with people when you're really just trying to build your business and hit your goals. Sometimes you need to say no. Sometimes you need to have that uncomfortable conversation. Sometimes you just need to, barge your way through the wall. And that is very important. So again, agreeableness is not, you don't need a super agreeable man, but you just really need to look at the essence and his intentions behind that. The next personality trait I'm going to talk about is called neuroticism. And this is a personality trait that is usually high in women and not so high on males or masculine energy. But I would say it is going to be a huge reason why someone would be broke. So if someone is high on the neuroticism scale, they usually tend to be anxious and negative thinkers. They also express a lot of negative emotions. Everything just feels super stressful to them, even though it's not that bad. And they tend to generally be dissatisfied with things. Now, if this sounds like someone going through depression or anxiety, it does seem kind of similar in terms of the symptoms and kind of the mindset that you go through. But some people are just naturally born like highly neurotic. And in a woman, it is kind of common and necessary because our role in a partnership tends to be like making sure things are okay, at home. And if you have a kid, you need to think of a lot of things to ensure there's no risk to the child or the baby. And I think as women, like we've learned to handle it. And unfortunately, society doesn't accept males with this trait really that well. That's just unfortunate. That's just the way it is. So a male that's exhibiting this kind of behavior may be kept from getting the high paying job or anything like that, because it's just strange for a man to be constantly stressed and to be constantly thinking negatively and to be overthinking. When you see this in women, it is unfortunately, double standard wise and it's just more normal, and I'm just gonna say it. So there is that kind of as well. Is this guy neurotic? Is this why he's broke? And the last indicator is extroversion. And I'm not really going to be going through this because whether you're introverted or extroverted, it's not really going to affect your relationship or your brokenness that much, because there are a lot of jobs that are good for introverts and there are a lot of jobs that are good for extroverts. And I feel like it is something that is more obvious and something that isn't going to ruin your relationship. Unless you're unaware that they are extrovert or introvert, I think you find out pretty quickly, because if they want to go to parties all the time, you want to stay home, that is very obvious. And you could have a very successful career being an introvert. Trust me, I'm an introvert. So, even though society favors extroverts generally more, I think the world has changed a lot and has accepted a lot of introverts, and there's lots of job opportunities and ways to earn income as an introvert. So this is not as big a deal. So those are kind of like the 5 big personality traits and maybe indicators as to why a guy is broke. And it's deeper than just the number in their bank account. I've broken down a lot of different personality traits that may lead to the brokenness, that would also lead to having trouble with someone in a relationship. Okay, beauties, let's talk about financial habits. Okay, depending on the age of the man, if someone is really young and they've barely had time to learn about themselves, to grow themselves, and they are so imprinted on the habits of their family or the environment that they grew up in, they may be broke because of that if they're young. And nothing against these people, but they may not be ready for a relationship, like a full adult provider relationship, until they've had time to work on themselves, to get rid of their bad habits, and to like literally grow up. So it might just not be the time to be with this guy because he's broke. So it may be like a waiting game. I do not believe in dating a project, even though I've dated so many projects. Regrets every single time. Like if you just want some work for some charity work, whatever, do it, ladies. But if you want a functioning partner, don't do projects. Just wait till they get their shit together and then go for it. They also could be broke because of their financial habits. And this is so important to talk to, guys, because I think when we start dating and we're totally hung up on this person, all this kind of logical stuff flies out the window. It's like, why would I care about that? But there are so many things that you can notice even during the dating phase. Like, how do they spend their money? Like, do they invest in like assets that grow? Are they like reckless with their money? Are they just like, I don't check my bank account, I'm gonna think about it later? Now, as women, we tend to do this. I had a shopping habit growing up and I was not the most responsible, but you don't need two irresponsible people in the relationship. You need someone that is, got their head on their shoulders, and the man taking care of the woman, or the masculine energy taking care of the feminine energy, is just so much more natural than this motherly energy where like us women now have to become the mother of the relationship and look after this man because he can't get his financial game together. So before you jump in, look at financial habits, whether they're broke or whether they're rich. Like, your financial habits need to be compatible. And if you're reckless and they have so much money that it doesn't matter that they're reckless, that's fine. As long as you're not out in the street, you don't have a kid and suddenly you can't pay for rent and things like that. You don't want to be in that situation. You got to think about that, ladies. So check out his financial habits, see if they're compatible. Are you guys agreeing to splurge on the same things? Because I don't believe living a life of such limitedness and focus so much on saving money that you literally don't enjoy it. If you have to do that, sure, do that. But if you don't have to do that, just like live a little. But even with the living a little, like you have to agree on like what living a little means. Like if I love splurging on like travel, I love traveling. I like splurging on the idea of travel. But I am so cheap when it comes to hotel rooms. Like I will book the cheapest hotel room. And, if I'm with someone that likes to splurge on hotel rooms, we're going to be in trouble if he's broke. Why? Because if he's broke, guess what's going to happen? Guess who's paying for that luxury hotel room, or like having to split it or whatever? But then I'm going to feel so bad about it because I'm like, I would normally not spend this much money on a hotel room and he can't pay for it, or I'm paying half and I don't feel like it's worth it. It's never gonna work in the long term if you can't agree on the basic things. Other things like going out to a restaurant. What if, your broke guy, even though he's broke, loves Michelin star restaurants? And you love eating at a casual cafe, not too cheap, but not too expensive. If he's constantly taking you out on these like expensive restaurant trips and like you're splitting because he can't pay for you, or you're paying for him as well because he can't pay for himself, girl, you're gonna be mad after all. You're gonna have so much resentment. You're gonna hate the relationship. It's not gonna be fun for anyone. So I would say these kind of financial habits, what you like to save on, what you like to splurge on, really think about it logistically and really think about how that's gonna like affect you long term. And yes, I am so cheap in most aspects of my life, but there are some things I will splurge on, and I think everyone is the same. And you gotta have some sort of compatibility there, or an ability to agree and just like compromise and really just be okay with that. Otherwise, resentment, girls. Resentment. All right, beauties, now that we've talked so long about why we shouldn't be dating a broke man and the red flags, I just really want to touch upon kind of like a more broader view of why there's so many broke men. Like the reason why you're dating broke men might be because there's a lot of broke men. Why is this? There seems to be less broke men when we watch old movies and things like that, or like previous generations than now. Why is that case? So I kind of did a little bit of thinking, and this is like purely my opinion from like what I've seen in society and the movement of culture. Like, don't take this as any sort of like gospel or like reference or like real hard data. But what I've noticed is this. So I think 50 years ago, or however long, in the olden days where women had less ability to earn income, there was a point in time, ladies, where we weren't even allowed to open our own bank account without our husband's signature. Now imagine that, like you literally had no financial independence or your own money. It was literally the man providing for you because he had to. That's how society was built and that's how it was made. So back then, I would say, the jobs were given only to men. right? Like women were homemakers. They stayed at home generally, look after the children. They were expected not to work. The man would provide. And so therefore, all the jobs only went to men. Now, when we had that feminism movement, women started being able to get our own education. We can now have our own bank accounts, yay, and get our own jobs. Now we are competing with men for those jobs. And I'm not going to be like, I'm obviously flying the flag for women because I am a woman, but I think we do a better job studying, getting good grades, and getting the job simply because like we're more willing to follow rules. And I think just more women in general are getting the jobs. So now the men are competing with us for these jobs. They're not just men working and women at home. It's like literally women can compete for the exact same amount of jobs as men. And I think I read this somewhere, I'm not 100% sure, but I think women are sometimes out competing the men a lot of the time for those jobs. So those men that didn't get a job because a woman took it, well, he is now at home, right? So maybe that's why you're seeing there's more broke men in general. And also, I think, a lot of men get caught up in this cycle, this dopamine cycle of games and pornography, and that, those kind of things really, really take a hit on your motivation, and it makes it hard for you to function in society and kind of progress your career because you're getting all these dopamine hits from these other sources. And I mean, social media is the same thing. And I think that's why for myself, like, I notice the more I go on social media and get these weird dopamine hits from these electronic devices, the less motivated I am to just go and do something hard. And doing something hard is what leads to being more successful and then in turn earning more money. So that could be a reason why there are more broke men. Maybe there are less opportunities because we're all fighting for them, including making the money that they would have made normally. We took that. But that doesn't mean that we should go feel sorry for them, take care of them, and be their mother. I think it's just we can do our role if we have brothers or male friends that are kind of stuck. We help them. I'm not against that, but don't date someone to take care of them like a mother. I don't think that is our job. I don't think that is our role. And I've personally done that before. And at the end of the day, it was not worth it. It just makes your life so much more difficult. I'd honestly rather help out my brother and my guy friends because at least they're going to stick around and not cheat on me, So keep that in mind. All right, guys, I think I covered a lot today. I mean, I really wanted to cover dating for potential, but I think that could be another podcast. And if you want to continue this conversation, don't forget to join my YouTube memberships because we can get in there, do some Q&A. I'll share some of my personal stories in there. If you have any more questions that come out of this podcast, I want to personally reply them for you. So definitely join, go in, ask your questions. And if you want another topic or you have questions for another podcast, I'll be doing like members only Q&A podcast episodes as well. And I'm going to give you all those checklists and flags and all the references for you guys so that like we could work on it together. And that's going to be so exciting. So please join the membership. I'll be back with another episode super soon. I'm really enjoying these guys and I'll see you soon. Love you, beauties. Mwah.
Use your spirit, mind, and body just to get me where you want me. Ooh.